how to MKUltra or brainwash people all over the world into liking and wanting my James Grider books. Basically, do the same thing they've done with Harry Potter and Twilight. How am I supposed to make commercials for my books that have the right MKUltra effect on the mind that will make people want the books? How am I supposed to hire shills who will go on various YouTube channels that children watch and on daytime television and talk about how much they enjoyed reading James Grider novels to inspire people to buy them? How do I make people feel that if they are not into James Grider novels, then they are behind the times, that they are not following the herd, and if they want to fit into the herd, they must buy and read James Grider novels? What needs to be done is I need to impart a sense on people that if you're not reading James Grider novels, then you're not fitting in with your peers. That James Grider is a trend, and if you want to be trendy and cool, you gotta follow the trend. How many kids who had failed to read Harry Potter books would have felt left out, would have felt behind their peers, and thus were compelled to read them just for that reason alone? But I don't control television and the internet to be able to do that. I have spoken things that would very much invoke the wrath of the people who do control television. And I didn't think about any of this when I started writing, and so I wasted my time on a pointless endeavor. All because I didn't think about how it's impossible for me to advertise and MKUltra people into buying my books. All because I didn't know how tightly the entertainment industry is regulated from the shadows. Here's a good example of the power of mass media. The power of the media is such that when it comes to stupid challenges, for example, like the cheesed challenge, here's my theory for how these challenges take off. I think instead of someone in the world thinking it up and then spreading it on the internet the way they want us to believe, it's actually the news media, like this Inside Edition channel, that actually thinks up this crap. And then the news media simply contrives a fake story to make it look as if people are doing it. And then when people watch the story and are misled to believe that it's something that their peers have started, they start imitating it, and that's how something like the cheesed challenge gains traction. Here is another sample of what I'm talking about. Here is a news article that cites a statistic that 88% of men send pictures of their penises to women. I think the statistic is bogus. But how many men might read this and think that if 88% of men do this, and they are not doing it, then they should be doing it too, because they need to catch up to their peers. Maybe there's some guy who is ashamed of doing it, but this 88% statistic might inspire him and take away his shame. Men will realize that it must be a fairly normal and common behavior, and that they should do it too, and then explain to the women that women should just accept this as normal. Just like that, by citing a bogus statistic, the news media can have the psychological effect of encouraging thousands of people to do something they were averse to doing before. It's not the culture that's making the news, but rather the news that is making the culture. I hope that makes sense, but that's how it's always been in a nutshell. So if the news media could create a story showing a bunch of kids talking about how much they enjoyed my books, the sheeple will want to follow what their peers are doing and read my books as well. They will see on television that people are enjoying them, and they will not want to be misfits by not partaking of James Grider books. And the news report showing how much people are enjoying my books could be totally fake. None of the kids shown will actually have read my books. But it's all about creating the illusion that something is trendy, that something is popular. And when you successfully create an illusion of popularity, real popularity will follow. I'm sure they've done this trick for Twilight and Harry Potter books. But I don't have the power to do that. I like how, coincidentally, James Grider's name has some interesting gematria, almost as if to pay tribute to the very people James Grider fights against. In Jewish gematria, based on the Latin alphabet, after the Jews added the letters J, V, and W to it, just say the word Jew and you'll understand why. James Grider adds up to 911. 9 and 11. Oh, how they love those numbers, 9 and 11. In Jewish ordinal, if that's an actual cipher, his name is 119, like a reflection of 911. In the primes cipher, which is just the first 26 prime numbers, that's, just to venerate prime numbers, James Grider is 330. And in numerology, you can drop zeros, so it's like 33, the very Masonic 33, with its, 33 degrees of ascension in Freemasonry. James, 33 reverse full reduction. James, 223 satanic cipher. The Synagogue of Satan is 223 in English ordinal. Masonic is 223 in the Jewish cipher. In no way does the Synagogue of Satan or Masonry apply to James Grider. However, we know that white supremacist is 223 in reverse ordinal, and he is very much that. It could also be said that James Grider's name pays tribute to the Bavarian Illuminati. The currency we use has Illuminati symbolism all over it, such as the all-seeing eye, which sums to 119, a reflection of 911. In reverse ordinal, James Grider's name is 188. Bavarian Illuminati is 188 in English ordinal. The Illuminati created the money we use. I found out that if you add up the denominations of the dollar bills, 1 plus 2 plus 5 plus 10 plus 20 plus 50 plus 100, it sums to 188. Although James Grider is yet to commit a school shooting, like we see on the news, his name would be good for a school shooter. In English ordinal, his name sums to 109, just like shooting. In fact, his name has a 109 and 55 overlap with the word military, although in the story it is his father who was in the military. James Grider hates the military because the military are the goons of the tyrants. How ironic. The word cocksucker is 109 in English ordinal, which is what people would label James Grider, for being a bitch, for being very feminine in his emotions. Here is an interesting bit of an organic coincidence, proving that gematria coincidences can occur naturally. I didn't do this on purpose because I didn't know about gematria when I conceived James Grider. The name Grider sums to 61 and 101. In the story, I have him use a paranormal object that allows him to be an assassin and assassinate people with nearly the same ease as possessing a death note. The word assassin sums to 61 and 101. I also depicted him living in the town of Eureka, where Eureka sums to 61 and 101. Berserker, 101 and 61. Berserker is one of a band of ancient Norse warriors, legendary for their savagery and reckless frenzy in battle. James can be savage and reckless, and he is white, but he has the body build of a twink, not a Norse warrior, although I'm sure his ancestors are from the Nordic regions. In reverse full reduction, Grider is 38, just like murder is 38, and death is 38, and he has done a whole lot of murder. Violent 38 reverse full reduction. James Grider has always lived with his own mental health under question. Mental health 61 reverse full reduction and 119 in English ordinal. The power he uses has been compared to that of the Grim Reaper, which sums to 61 in reverse full reduction. I wrote that he acquired the wick dick of Hecris in December. James Grider, 55, December 55. His dog's name is Fayu. Fayu and Mason have a strong overlap. As for Carmela Grider, his twin sister, there doesn't seem to be anything numerically significant about her name. Yep, as insignificant as she is. James Grider and Carmela Grider, 127 full reduction. Scottish Rite of Freemasonry, 127 full reduction. Both their names also sum to 235 in English ordinal. 235 is a significant number. The Masonic compass in the Freemasons logo is set at 47 degrees. The Earth tilts 23.5 degrees between each tropic line, for a combined 47 degrees. Like I said, a lot of these significant numbers in gematria come from the natural world. Therefore, each leg of the Masonic compass is at 23.5 degrees. It's also nice that, in reverse full reduction, the names of the fraternal twins sum to 161, the number of the golden ratio. 1 to 1.61 is the golden ratio of perfect aesthetics. In Zach Hubbard's book Letters and Numbers, this is brought up. James and Carmela are supposed to be sexy, so I guess this perfection-related number very much applies to them. As for the 440 in reverse ordinal, it's the same as 44, where the very applicable word kill sums to 44. James's full name is James Christopher Grider, which is because his father's name is Christopher. In Jewish gematria, it's 1404, 1404, and like I said, in numerology you can drop zeros. The word killer in that same cipher is 144. James was 15 when he committed his first murder. 15 and murder have a nice overlap. James Grider, 31, Chaldean. Serial killer, 31, Chaldean. Best of all, James Grider's name overlaps with that of Tim McVeigh, the kind of man that we're supposed to view as a boogeyman, to be terrified of. It's the government that did the Oklahoma City bombing. You see, if a government can simulate having been attacked by someone who hates it, the government can then build a narrative for how the public should perceive such an act of rebellion, and use the media to program people to despise such acts, long before most people will wake up to the fact that such acts are necessary. That way, the people's disgust at such an act will be stronger than their desire to rebel against tyranny. This way, people will believe that it's better to tolerate a few inconveniences of tyranny than to sully our hands with the blood of others. And that's how the PSYOP works. You've got to instill a sense in people that fighting back is worse for your soul than simply putting up with abuses. Look at how scary the explosion was. Look at how people have suffered from physical injury and death. Children died. Isn't it better to just pay your taxes and work just a little harder than fight tyrants with violence? And this is why it's good for the government to conduct such a psyop long before people have gone over the edge and before people are beyond being shamed or have their conscience appealed to. But if you don't play out this psyop before people are still susceptible to shaming and listening to their conscience, you'll lose. You got to program your subjects that violence is not the way before they've been psychologically tipped over the edge where they no longer care. And it's best to do it not by a show of force, but in a way that appeals to their conscience. This way, if the government can't stop people from ever rebelling, it can at least delay it for a long time until it solidifies its power. That's why they love to make TV shows and movies about how a cop's family suffers when a cop is killed in the line of duty, or when a federal agent is killed. That way, instead of using violence, people will be emotionally affected by the sad story, and people will prefer to look for a more humane way to stop tyranny, in a way that saves everyone, and not just the people, but in a way that saves the cops and saves the politicians. And that will make it much harder for the rebels to win, and so much easier for the government to stop their uprising.